Mhm.
Good evening and welcome to the Disciplinary Literacy session. NCCE is excited to be delivering this training to you this evening. NCCE is a nonprofit organization that is built by educators. We have a membership of over 4,000 members, and we host the largest EdTech conference in the Pacific Northwest. We are honored to be your presenters for this series. My name is Noreen Dooley. I am a professional learning specialist with NCCE as well as a technology coordinator in the Houston area. I have been in education for 22 years and am a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. I also have 2 teenagers, so once again, we thank you for being here and investing the time and getting to know the new district devices. Along with me is Dan Perez.
Good evening, everybody. I am Dan Perez, and I too am also a professional learning specialist for NCCE. In addition to, I'm also a digital learning coach for a school district out in Rosenberg, Texas, which is about a half hour outside of Houston. And I've been in education for over 15 years. I was a 6th grade science teacher for 7 years, and since then, I have been a part of this current position. I too also am a part or have a couple of teenagers in the secondary age range. And so knowing what they can do with their devices and how it helps them as it improves their education, seeing that side of things and what you guys are doing in Dallas ISD is super exciting. So happy to be here. I'm excited for night 3.
So like Dan just said, this is session 3 of 3 for families. In this session, we will focus on disciplinary literacy, which will cover topics such as how Microsoft Word can assist students with becoming better avid writers. We will also be sharing a few powerful features in PowerPoint to help students make the most out of the design of their presentations, along with a presenter coach that will help students deliver polished presentations. And then in addition to that, we will explore how Microsoft OneNote can be a powerful organizational and interactive tool to support a successful learning environment for students. As we have said, this is a series of 3 sessions. During session 1, we provided an overview of the Surface Go laptops, digital citizenship expectations, best practices for utilizing the devices, available software, and device care. In session 2, we looked at ways to locate and share saved work in OneDrive, the online experience with Microsoft 365, and how the Microsoft Edge browser that is on the Surface Go devices can be personalized to create an inclusive, engaging, and rich learning experience for students. We showcased immersive reader, collections, web clippings, and the math solver that are all built right into the Edge browser. The recordings for the first 2 sessions, as well as tonight's session, will be available on demand on the website shown on the screen. If you have specific questions for Dallas ISD regarding deployment of the Surface Go laptops, we encourage you to fill out the form that you see on the screen. There is a QR code for it, and then also the link. And again, this is for submitting a question regarding the Surface Go devices. In addition, you can submit a support ticket for help using the Let's Talk knowledge base, and that link is found at the top of the screen, so this will provide technical support. So the first thing that we are going to look at this evening is Word Online. And in Word Online, we're going to be looking at some different features, including the simplified ribbon, the search feature that's built right within the online app. We're going to look at dictation, the powerful editor. We are going to look at immersive reader that is in Word Online. and then also the translation feature that is part of Word Online. So that's where we're going to start. So at this point, I'm going to switch over so that I can show you. We're going to go into Microsoft 365. So let me switch over to that. So I have logged in to Microsoft 365, just like your students would log in to Microsoft 365. And you can also think of it like the Google environment. Google is online, and when you log into Google, you can see all of your available apps. Microsoft 365, also referred to as Office 365, has those same features. So when you log in, you have access to all of the apps in that environment. So to get to the apps within Office 365, if it's not bookmarked on the device, you can always go to office.com or go to portal.office.com and log in, and then you will be able to see all of your apps. Again, just like in Google, where you can see all the apps, you can see all of them within this environment. And so in Office 365, we have the availability to access all of these apps online. However, they can also be accessed on the actual device, and Dan went over this in session 2. But this evening, we are just going to be focusing on the online environment and the apps that are located within this online environment. So the first one that we are going to look at, as I mentioned, is we are going to be looking at Word Online. And so when I come into Office 365, I'm going to see my most used apps are going to show up over on the left-hand side, usually. So I see a list there. As I scroll down, you can see all of them. I can also go up to the app launcher, and then I can go to all apps, and I can see all of the apps that I have available. But again, for this next part, I am just going to be focusing on Word. So I'm going to switch over to one of my Word documents that I already have open, so we can look at some of these features. So for those of us that have been using Word for a while, not to date ourselves, but Word was at the time when it rolled out, it was a word processor. It allowed us to go in and we could write. But we need to change the lens of how we feel about Word and realize that it is much more powerful than just going in and just typing and getting ideas down. So we're going to share some things that are really helpful to students and their success. So the first one I just want to share is about personalization of Word. So when I am in Word, there is an option up at the top to be able to simplify my ribbon. And what that means is this bar that's going across the top, there is a little arrow over on the right-hand side. The classic ribbon, when we're used to going into Word, it looks like this. But I can actually simplify this, and it still works like a traditional ribbon with the tabs going across the top and the commands at each tab, but it's more streamlined. So as you can see, it uses up less space, it fits on a single line, and it can help our students focus more and be more productive. This may also help with people who have mobility disabilities to navigate around, and it just reduces the amount of time spent finding important features because it just kind of cleans that up. So again, I can have my classic ribbon, or I can go to my simplified ribbon. And then I want to point out one of my absolute favorite features that I feel like is underutilized with our students, and that is the search feature up at the very top. This makes it easier for students to discover the difficult to find capabilities of Word by just simply typing something up there in that search box. So the search feature will take students directly to the feature function that they want to use without requiring them to sift through the ribbon menu. So, one thing that I feel like I'm always looking for is the ability to strike through text. So if I highlight something, see, you can tell I'm always looking for strike through. When I search for it, it's going to come up and it's going to automatically do it for me. So I just can click on it and boom, it's going to strike through right there. So I spent zero time looking for where that might actually be in the tools. It's there. It's also going to somewhat read your mind, because there's sometimes that I come in here and I search for something and maybe I'm not thinking of the right term of what it actually is. Like another thing that I tend to not use enough to remember where it is all the time is putting in a header or a footer. And so I could certainly come in here and I can type in header, but sometimes I come in here and I type in title just because I can't remember that that's a header and footer. And you're going to notice it knows me well, and it's trying to tell me, did you really mean that you wanted to do a header and a footer? So that shows up there. So again, I feel like this is underutilized with students, but it's a huge time saver, and it will help them just be able to do that action right away without searching. And then I want to keep saying my favorite features, because we utilize these. Once you know about them, it's like you can't stop using them, just like that search feature. So the next one is the editor, and this, I even use this as an adult daily. The editor in Word basically provides a robust writing support, which is available with just a touch of a button. It takes students much further than traditional spelling and grammar checks. This tool was actually built with specific research into dyslexia in mind, but it is useful to all students, and it can greatly decrease student frustration at not being able to show what they know due to barriers in basic writing skills. So we know about Word, this goes way further than just a little red squiggle that we've all come to know when something isn't spelled correctly. So if I want to run my document through the editor, I have a few different options. One, right now I am in just the home button, home area, and I have this little pencil over here for the editor. I can also find this pencil if I go under review, and then I'm going to notice the pencil is also over there. So when I click on editor, it is now scoring my entire paper. So it's reading and it's looking for many different things. And I'm going to scroll down over on the right-hand side just a little bit so you can see some of the things that it's looking for. Acronyms, clarity, conciseness, formality, inclusiveness, perspectives, punctuation. It's looking for all of these things. And it gave me a score of 58% on my writing. So of course, I want my writing to be 100%. So if I want to see what it is telling me, and also I do want to point out that I have it set at formal writing. So it is going to give me a score for how this is written compared to formal writing standards. I can change it, and if I'm submitting this professional, I can certainly type in professional, and notice that my score changed a little bit. I can also choose casual. My score didn't change a whole lot there, but I can choose a different type of writing for this. So I'm going to actually go back to, I'm going to do formal because that's where it caught the most things. So when I want to see what did it catch, I'm going to click on editor score. And let me scroll back up. So when I click on my editor score, it should be breaking this down for me so that I can look at my different areas where I need to fix. So you notice it's highlighting all the stuff on my page. I have lots of different marks, so we do know that the red is for things that aren't spelled correctly. But I want to see what it's saying here for effect. So it's looking at my grammar. Notice it's correcting grammar and spelling. So it's saying that maybe I wanted to say effect instead of effect. So I can choose to agree with that, or I can ignore it. I also want to show that I can break down what it is that we're looking at just by clicking on these different categories too. So I can go through my document or I can go through the different categories. So repeatedly, encouraged repeatedly, it's telling me that that is spelled wrong. So I can ignore it. I can change it. I'm going to say, I'm actually going to ignore that just at the moment. And I'm going to go to my grammar. So that's going to pull all the grammar things. It's going to look for clarity, which I really like the clarity because it makes us think. So spelling is pretty straightforward. We can see what needs to be spelled correctly. But the clarity is interesting because it helps you reword things. Like this one is telling me that I have a double negative here. Sometimes it will tell me if I use like many, it will say for better clarity, you should maybe give a number in there, an actual number instead of many. So it really helps us to think about it. And we might not always go with the suggestion, but we can read here and see why it is even suggesting that in the first place. And if I go to formality, it's going to tell me this term may strike your reader as too informal. Of course, go bananas. That is pretty informal, so we might not want to say that. Go wild might be better. If I look at inclusiveness, this is going to make sure that we're not saying anything that might be hurtful to someone, or the biggest example that I like to use is I'm actually from Chicago. And in Chicago, it is very common for us to say, you guys. That's just what we say. Everybody is you guys. It doesn't matter if it's a girl or a boy. You guys. So that is not inclusive language, because when I travel and go other places and I say you guys, many people take offense to that because they feel like they are not included in that. So this looks for things like that. So we need to, as you can see there, it's saying to look for gender neutral terms that might be more inclusive. So you can see how this can really help the students feel like they have a writing coach sitting with them, helping them go through their writing so that when they do submit something, they feel confident in their work. So also going to scroll down just a little bit more so you can just see, I can look at my statistics on this. I can look at my top corrections happening. So the editor, again, it's going to read everything that's in there. It's automatically built in, and it can be found under review with the little pencil. And then it can also be found under home with the pencil. But I do want to say under review, when you go to the little pencil, you can actually edit the settings of this, which this is where it gets really good, because you can go in and you can modify everything that you want it to check for. So I currently have it checking for basically everything. But if there's things that I don't want it to check for, I can certainly uncheck those. But you can get a general idea of everything that it is looking for when it is checking. So again, we have come a long way from Word just checking spelling for us. Now it is helping us become better writers, and it's helping our students. So that is the editor piece. The next part that I'm going to show you in Word is the immersive reader. I'm not going to go through this like we did, because we actually went through immersive reader in all of the details and components of it in session 2. So we encourage you to look at session 2 so you can get that deep dive into what immersive reader is. But I am going to show you that it is not only in Word, you're going to find it in a lot of other Office 365 products, as well as even third-party apps. So within Word, if I come up to View, there it is. So I've got immersive reader there. And it is now providing an interactive text-to-speech tool. And this tool is going to allow me to access the content of this page with my own individual needs. So we tend to think of immersive reader as like having a reading buddy for your student, your child, that can give them that extra customized and even discrete support for reading within the classroom setting or even in the middle of a lecture. So students have the option to help create a reading experience with a document that works best for them. And we have found that these learning tools can help increase fluency for English, our English language learners, readers of other languages. It helps build confidence for emerging readers learning to read at higher levels. Also offers text decoding solutions for students with learning disabilities such as dyslexia. And then we know a lot of times we have auditory learners and they want to listen to the content read out loud. So this provides that. And again, this was covered in session 2, so I'm not going to go into full detail about the immersive reader, but I am going to point out that when I'm in here, I have the option down at the bottom to play. So this is going to play and read this out loud for me. I also have the option to come up to the top right and look at text preferences. And when I do that, I can adjust the size, I can adjust the spacing, I can change the font, and this isn't changing the font of the document, it's only changing the font of how I'm consuming the information right now and viewing it. I can add a color overlay that is going to help me be able to see this better. I can look at my grammar options, and right now I currently have this broken down by syllables, but I can change that. I could look at parts of speech and have those highlighted. And then lastly, I can look at a line focus, just read one line at a time, 3 lines, a paragraph. I could use the built-in dictionary that's going to allow me to click on a word within here, and sometimes they have pictures for them, sometimes they don't. Oops, let me go back into my immersive reader. So to get out of immersive reader, you can press escape, and that is going to get you out, which is what I just did. So let me go back in, and let me go back to my line focus. And so we were looking at picture dictionary, so not every word has a picture associated with it. It's definitely growing in that category, but many of the words I can click on and see a picture so that I can see the context of the word. And then I can also click and I can hear it read out loud. And then lastly, I mentioned that it has the ability to translate. So I can translate one word within my document, or I can translate the entire document. And this actually isn't changing any of the format within my document. It's right now just how I am consuming the information. So again, if you want a really detailed overview of Immersive Reader, it's in session 2 because Immersive Reader is in Microsoft Edge, which is the internet browser we looked at. But like we said, it is also in many other apps. And then, so far, we've looked at some fairly traditional ways of interacting with content. But the fact is, some of our students don't only need to have ways to interact with the content, they need to have ways to process text. And full accessibility means that they also need to have alternative options for composing it. So within Word, we have the dictation feature, which allows for our students to be able to create compositions without frustration. And then, of course, as we've been talking, it even translates. So within Word, if I were a student and I wanted to come in here and I want to jot down all of my ideas, but I'm a slow typer, or I just am better just speaking and getting my ideas out and then maybe going back and editing them, I can come here and click on the little microphone that's up at the top, and I can dictate. And when I dictate, you're going to notice that it is listening to me and it's starting to type. Oops, let me press my microphone again. It is starting to type everything that I am saying. It is pretty accurate. So as you can see, as it's going, it is typing word for word what I'm saying. So can you imagine you'd show your child or your children this, your students who struggle and have a difficult time putting pencil to paper, or maybe sometimes even hand to keyboard, that they can now write something by just saying it so they can tell their ideas. As we know, a lot of our students have no problems talking, but typing and writing might be a different case. And then the very last thing in Word, and I keep bringing this up because it's all over Word. Many of these apps, you'll find that we see them in different places, but the last feature in Word is the translation feature. So if I come up to review up at the top, you're going to notice there's my translate. It was also an immersive reader, but with the translator tool, we have the ability to now connect beyond the walls of our classroom like never before. So when we are sharing and collaborating, students can use the translator app to work with students who don't necessarily speak the same language, or if they're just getting their ideas down in their document in their native language, they can translate it back to English or vice versa. So if I go to translate, you're going to notice I can translate a section, or I can translate the whole entire document. And so it's doing my auto detect of the language, and I wanted to change it. I'm going to do this one to French. I can even say I always want to translate it to French. This time I'm going to translate it. It's translating my entire document. It takes just a moment to process it, and now I have my document in French. So again, if French is my native language and I'm coming in here and I want to get all of my ideas down, I want to process this, I can type it in my native language and then I can translate it to English. Or if I am not a native English speaker, but I want to type it in English, I can translate it to another language and test it out and read it over, and then I can translate it back. So that gives our students a lot of power with that feature. So those are a few things in Word, some of the ones that we find most useful with our students as they are writing. And again, Word is not the word that we are probably most familiar with just being a word processor. So the next app that we are going to look at, and again, this is probably another one you're like, okay, PowerPoint. We've all heard death by PowerPoint, and we know PowerPoint to be presentations, but PowerPoint itself is even extra powerful and has added a lot of features for our students. In fact, it's added two things that we are going to focus on in here, and that is the presenter coach and the design ideas. So I'm just like we did with Word within this Microsoft 365 environment. I can click on my app launcher. I can see all of my apps, and PowerPoint is one of my apps that I can go to and work strictly online. And so that's what I'm going to be doing with this next PowerPoint that we look at. I'm just going to be working online. And actually, I am going to work on, I'm actually going to work in our presentation PowerPoint just so you can see this presenter coach that we have available in here. So an excellent tool for allowing students to practice on their own and get feedback before presenting to a class is the presenter coach feature that is in PowerPoint. Presenter coach can evaluate pacing, the use of filler words, informal speech, and even culturally sensitive terms, among other things within the presentation. So, our students create a lot of presentations and probably have to present those presentations. So now they actually have their own personal coach and can present right here within PowerPoint before they go live in front of an audience. So I'm going to just in my PowerPoint. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to slideshow. And in the slideshow, I am going to rehearse with coach. I got my own personal coach built right in here. And then over on the right-hand side, it's going to tell me just a little bit about this, that as I'm rehearsing, as I'm talking, it's going to give me feedback. So how great is that I have this own personalized feedback right here. And then at the very end, it's going to give me a summary of how I did as I was practicing, getting ready to present. So I am going to start rehearsing. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to go to another slide, and actually I'm going to talk really fast. So on the slide, you can see, it's already giving me some feedback. On the slide, you can see, I'm going to read, we are a nonprofit organization built by educators. NCCE has a membership of over 4,000 members and hosts the largest ed tech conference in the Pacific Northwest. So you can already see I've had some feedback coming up. The feedback that just came up is telling me, it's just giving me all sorts of feedback over there. So one of the feedback things that came up was that I was reading word by word on here. So I had a pop-up that came up, and it's encouraging me to try to avoid reading the slides and instead to summarize key points, which is where that goes back to the whole death by PowerPoint, right? We don't want to be reading our slides. And then what also keeps coming up is filler words. So I use the word actually. I may have said in the process because it picked up that too, but it is looking for filler words because we don't want to use filler words when we are presenting. It will also catch us if we are talking very fast. So let me go, I'm going to go maybe to this slide, and I'm going to tell you more just for practice. So look at that, it's even encouraging, it's telling me I'm off to a good start, which is good. But this slide, I'm going to go through, and I'm not going to read the slide word for word because it has prompted me that I should be summarizing my points on here. But I am going to see if it will pick up the speed that I'm going to read this. So I'm going to talk about the sessions once again, and I'm going to try to talk about them really fast to see what it says. So during session 1, we provided an overview of the Surface Go laptops, digital citizenship expectations, best practices for utilizing the devices, available software, device care. In session 2, we looked at ways to locate and share saved work in OneDrive. Okay, so it's not going to pick up my fast talking. It must be used to me talking fast because I am from Chicago, so we tend to talk fast. So could be used to that, but a lot of times it does. Oh, I'm improving. So a lot of times it will catch us if we are talking too fast. It will say slow down and give us that valuable feedback. I do love that it is encouraging as well. So with this presenter, it's basically picking out 4 things that it is looking at. It's looking at our speed, if we're using filler words. It is also looking for inclusive language. So if I were to say, you guys, here's an example of what we did for, there it goes, for session 2, it is saying that that might be offensive and non-inclusive in there. Then it's also going to catch me if I read a slide word for word. So there's really those 4 main techniques that it is looking for. But when I'm finished with this, I can hit escape, and here's what's great about this, and think about our students that are practicing on their own over and over. This is giving me a nice summary of how I did. So it's talking about the filler words that I used, that I should try to sound more polished and confident and not use actually, I mean. I did pretty good with the repetitive language, inclusiveness. I tell you, it catches at you guys all the time. My originality, my pronunciation was pretty good. And here's where it catches my pace. So I'm surprised that it didn't tell me I was talking too fast, but a lot of times it will say that your pace is too fast. So I can use this feedback, and then I can go in and rehearse again and look at a new report and just make sure that as a student, I am polished and ready to go to give that report in front of actual people. So we love the power of the built-in coach right here within PowerPoint. And then the one last thing that I want to show you, so we're polishing our presentations, but we can actually make our presentations look beautiful also. So not just how we're saying it, what it actually looks like. So the last thing I'm going to show you is the designer feature that is built right within PowerPoint. And I'm going to switch over to just a very plain PowerPoint over here. And so when I come over and I'm going to start a presentation, and my topic is going to be fall. I want to start looking at the design of this. I can come up and click on design. And then you're going to notice I have a designer button. And when I press that, all of a sudden, I get these amazing templates that I can use. And so a feature that is somewhat new to PowerPoint is that there are looping videos, not just for everything just yet, but they're adding more and more. So if I'm creating this slideshow on fall, I can choose this one and it's going to give me this nice looping video when I present it, and we'll be able to see that. Or I can choose some of these other templates, but this is automatically helping with the design. I have another one that I kind of started that's very plain, and so I always tell students, focus on your content first, and then we'll come in and do the design and the fonts. So this one's very plain. I started with some content, but if I go to design, designer, it's going to give me some ideas for what I want this to look like, or might want this to look like. And if I don't see anything I like, I can always go to see more designs. And it's giving me some options. I'm just going to choose this one. And then when I go to my other slides, look how it breaks down my bullet points. So if I were designing this on my own, I probably would not have thought of doing this. But look at how it pulls those bullet points out and makes them definitely more noticeable within this. And then here's another plain slide that I had, and the designer is going to help me make it look more polished. So in PowerPoint, again, that was the presenter coach and the designer that is going to help our students make very polished presentations. So at this time, I'm excited to turn it over because we have more to share with you. Another powerful app that is in the Microsoft 365 suite. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan so that he can tell you all about OneNote notebooks and how powerful they are.
Thank you so much, Noreen. I'm super duper excited to share with you guys. Just give me a second. And I think we are there. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and basically bring us back into our Microsoft 365 or Office 365 environment as we're going to see it inside of this Dallas client. And so basically you've gotten here. To get here, we just went to office.com, signed in with our district credentials, and we are here. So this is our general kind of landing page. Again, the apps that Noreen had showed us. I love all the wonderful things that she had shared with us. Great that it's Word, great that it's powerful, but PowerPoint, but it's amazing that those things are still there even on the online version. And there's even more with those desktop software versions that we've mentioned in the previous sessions this week. And those software versions will even be available to your students standard on their Surface devices. So I'm super duper excited to see and hear about all the creative things that they're going to be able to do in there. So with that being said, again, I'm sticking with the online environment here. And the powerful tool that we want to talk about is OneNote, but I don't want you to get confused with another app that we've kind of mentioned before, and that is OneDrive. So they both start off with that one label. And so I did want to talk about OneDrive again very, very quickly. We mentioned yesterday or in session 2 that it was going to be great when it has a student organization. This is Microsoft's version of their cloud service. And of course, we're used to other cloud services. I'm sure students are used to Google Drive, as well as maybe iCloud and some other cloud services as well. And so in here, went ahead and created one like how a student could actually use. And so in here, this is primarily just driving files and folders as far as different things you can do in here. But for students, since this is not just something that's going to be cleared out or gone away after they're done with the school year, this is going to be something that's with them during their entire young career at Dallas ISD. I really recommend to students, and I work with students a whole lot about organizing their cloud spaces and creating folders and things like that, because they wouldn't kind of carry a single round backpack and accumulate stuff that they acquire over the course of several years. Otherwise, that would be a very, very scary backpack, especially without folders or dividers even within those binders and things like that. So I really recommend to go ahead and first of all start off with the different years. They can label them 10th grade as well, 11th grade, whatever works for them. And once they're in here, they can break them down by their different subjects, because that's how they're going to be working as far as a focus based off their different subjects. They can include electives or other specialty courses that they may be taking as well. And then from there, they can just make sure that it's based off of maybe the grading period. So again, as it accumulates over the course of the year, they're not getting overwhelmed or lost and those kind of things here. And so this is great that they can see all these different things once they have their files also properly labeled, instead of things like document 1, document 2, document 3. All those different kinds of things are really important to keep up with it, so they're not getting frustrated and wondering where things are, especially when it comes into their high school career and secondary things, where you're starting to have to save things and save them in that kind of like portfolio type of frame of mind. So they want to have things that are properly labeled, because if they need to go back to it, and if it's something that they hadn't been to or gone to in a while, it doesn't show up in those recent categories. And so there's some digging and searching that's involved. And so if they have their stuff laid out a little bit easier, then they can find it a whole lot better. Also, just like a lot of other cloud storages, at the top above the list of files, there is this list of different folders, or what we call parent folders. In the tech world, we call them breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs, so that we can kind of make our way back into those upper folders that we found the resources in. So the reason why I want to talk about OneDrive is because to store and get started with our next powerful and super duper amazing app, one of my most favorite apps that I've had over the past several years, it is OneNote, which is basically a digital binder that is created or can be utilized by our students and also by staff, for people that are using any. If you're any kind of person that needs to organize stuff, then chances are OneNote is a great tool that can be for you. Now, the best thing to start off with a OneNote is to start creating it inside of a OneDrive folder area. And so in this case, I picked the 2021-22 school year because I'm going to pretend this is like a binder that I'm dedicating to this school year, and I'm going to play the role as like maybe an upperclassman that is going on inside high school. And so to create that, I would just click new, and OneNote is one of those options that I can choose. It just asks for a title for it, and then that's it. Now, OneNote is a very, very powerful tool. It's not stored with just one single file like we're used to with Word, PowerPoint, and all those kind of other things. It's almost like an accumulation of lots of many little type of files that come together through this one type of link that lives inside your OneDrive. Also in OneDrive, just as a side note, I love how you can also save links. So I know like in our Chrome browsers and things like that, we can set up profiles and share and save favorites or bookmarks, but we can also save those links inside of our OneDrive just in case we kind of need it on the fly and we're not in our standard browser, but it's pretty neat. So anyway, that's how you would create a OneNote notebook, is a is right in here. I've gone ahead and created one, and when I click on here, I already have it open. I'm going to click on it in here, and when I open it, this is kind of the standard view as far as what you're going to see inside of the notebook. Over here on the left-hand side is just a couple little menu pieces, but over here, this is basically like a bookshelf, is what we call it, and in here, it can house multiple OneNote notebooks or like multiple binders, just like how you would a normal bookshelf that houses lots of different binders and books as well. Also, on the next column, we have what they call sections and a collection of section groups. So this isn't just like a normal binder where you would have your binder and then maybe some divider tabs and then pieces of paper within those divider tabs. This can actually have an upper layer of actually having like a divider tab within divider tabs. And that's kind of what I have kind of showcased in here, is that this first divider tab is just dedicated to some basic school information. Maybe I have the district calendar in here. Maybe I'm having a keeping track with a grade tracker with all my different grades to kind of help me keep up and stay ahead of things. And I'm not necessarily depending on getting my grades where I would normally get my grades kind of thing. So it puts me as a student a little bit more in control. I also have my subjects over here, and these are a little bit different because they have these little arrows next to them. They don't have the colorful tabs like what we may see here. But in here, when I click on the arrow tabs, it's going to open up additional tabs. So this is where I was talking about. It's those tabs within tabs or sections within sections. And OneNote calls those upper sections section groups. So in this case, ELAR, I'm having one, but I've dedicated a section for each of my grading periods. So all of my work is now confided to a single area, and it doesn't build up and become a little bit scary as the year progresses. And in this case, a daily journal could be great. It's kind of empty for me right now, but I can have over here on the right-hand side is just the last column is just nothing but acts like pages. And so as I navigate through the different pages, it pulls up all my white space over here. Whatever I have titled up over here is what matches up with my title over here in my pages column. And so I can just keep adding and keep adding and keep adding as I need to. And I can also resort them. So in this case, if I wanted the newest date to be on top, I can resort them as well. And so it gives you lots of control as far as how things can be organized for you. Also, they can put any kind of things in here. It doesn't have to be just dedicated to their actual school work that's happening on campus. But if they're prepping for college, another good idea is to add stuff that's in here as well. And so they can bring a section in here that accumulates their test scores with the OneNote app. They can also, and even a little bit of their OneNote Surface, they can also take images of maybe their test scores or pull it in from whatever records that they get from online as far as how it's sent to them. And they can save those things in here. And so they kind of know where they're at or how they need to improve. They can bring in their CV or resume type of situation. There's some extracurricular portfolios that they may be a part of, clubs, things like that. And here, it's all building up within their personal portfolio. And so they can see kind of where they're at, maybe some goals that they have to kind of pursue and keep going on in their high school career so that it looks good when it comes to their college applications and applying for college. And then they can even bring in some other different schools that maybe that they're interested in, and also bring in lots of pages that are dedicated to those different areas. And so here is now they have those different schools. They're all next to each other. They don't have to depend on the crazy booklets, stuff that they picked up from college visits and accumulate all this paperwork and brochures and all kinds of stuff like that. Now their research can be collected in all one single space. And again, I'm basically online. I'm in a browser. I don't have to be just on my Surface, but it also automatically saves to my Surface as well. So just in case I need to get away from my Surface and still access this, I still can do that by going to office.com and then opening up my OneNote app in there and seeing it in there as well. The beautiful thing about their Surface too is that since they have this app already installed, they can keep adding to it regardless of their Wi-Fi or internet connection. If their internet connection is lost, they can still keep working within the OneNote app, keep adding to it, do whatever they need to as if it was acting online. And then once they do obtain a connection, it's just going to resync and then resave everything as far as what their work has done when it comes to that surface. So that's something that's going to be very powerful for them. Because I know there's times where even if we don't have hotspot capabilities, we need to do some work like on the road as we're traveling from different places. And if you're traveling in Texas, it's not going to be, you're not going to get where you need to very quickly. So we usually have to spend some time on the road in order to get from one big city to the other. So things like that and situations like that, especially like even a college visit where they can just add a lot of information and things like that they've seen there, they can kind of use this OneNote area to acquire stuff. And then once they get that internet connection, it's going to be saved as a backup piece. There's lots of things that they can do within a given piece in here, just the inking capabilities of the touchscreen that's available to their surface, utilizing their finger, maybe a workable third-party stylus. They can just have this as a large working space. So these pages are not stuck to like an 8 by 10 an 8.5 by 11 type of format, like maybe Word is. This is a large free space. They can keep scrolling to the right and they can keep scrolling down as they need to and expand their thoughts and really lay out any kind of brainstorming that they may have for a specific project. They can easily erase things. They can move things around as it becomes in here. And so it's a very powerful interactive area. And again, this is something that's saved automatically, and then they can have access to whatever they're doing and picking up from their work, whatever they last did with this powerful saving feature of it being stored in the cloud. Another thing I wanted to share too is that there is very similar to what Noreen had shared with us as far as what Edge goes, is that there is a ink to math feature. So Noreen was sharing with us as far as the math capabilities that is in there. There's also plenty of apps that are out there that kind of help us out with math. So I know Microsoft also has an app called Microsoft Math Solver, where you can scan math problems, and it kind of helps guide you through that as well. And I know there's other kind of apps out there that do the same thing. So it's hardest for math teachers to send homework down and for it to be legitimately completed by students without any assistance, especially technical assistance. My kids even told me that even Snapchat has some of these capabilities. So it's pretty wild as far as the assistance that the students can get with complicated math problems. So OneNote is not any much different. So if I came in here and I actually selected this, I went ahead and typed it out. There is a draw feature, and when I click on this, I can actually circle this little problem that I may have typed out, click on the math, it would recognize it as the problem there, and then from there I can go ahead and choose. It doesn't seem to be wanting to work really quickly. However, I have the OneNote app, which your students will have on standard for their Surface. And I'm going to go back to the same thing. So as you can see, I'm actually working in what they call a Windows 10 version of the app. And what this will do is, as you can see, it's kind of laid out very similar to what you see on the online version. All my sections as well as my pages are in their same spots. And I'm going to go to some of the same spots that I have here. And so here we go. It actually picked it up, the correct formula that I'm wanting to work with or equation. And now it gives me some options as far as how I want to solve it. So let's this case, I don't need to solve for y because it's already solved for y. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. It gives me the answer as far as it does, or as far as it's going to be calculated as. And then I can see the steps that I want to do. In this case, it gives me one option. Sometimes it can pick up more than one. And then it shows me the steps as far as how I can work out that problem as well. I love this also too, especially in the app version, because as Noreen showcased earlier, as well as yesterday, but this also can be opened up in Immersive Reader, which is extremely powerful, especially because with all of our upper level math related problems, and even some of those scientific type of problems, there's some terminology that's a little bit more complicated, especially if our students are not very fluent in the English language as their first language. Some of those things, sometimes we see those words and we just need to know what it sounds like and kind of feel more comfortable with it. And we can do that by having OneNote assist us with that as well. Not only can it also Sorry. Not only can it also show us the answers, it can also do some graphing and show us what that needs to do, as well as some of the key features when it relates to that as well. I'm going to go back to the solving for X because there's something I want to share too. So as kind of Noreen shared the other day, when you're trying to help out your kids, especially with upper level math, and it's math that you haven't really done a whole lot or work in on a daily basis, it can be a little bit of a struggle to really truly assist them. And so here it shows those steps. But another thing I love about this is that, especially for like my kids, they do okay with their homework. The teacher may have assigned them just a few problems, but I know if they just had a little bit more practice, they can actually improve their skills as it relates to this. And so they can click on this button and it generates a practice quiz of the very similar problems that you just asked for help. And so from there, it actually appears in Microsoft Forms, so it's very much similar to like a Google Forms, but but basically like a quiz. And so there they can actually continue to practice, select from correct answers, and continue to work out their problems and have an extended piece of their practice when it comes to those math skills as well. So with that, this is basically the anatomy of OneNote. Again, it's just a large, super duper powerful binder. I know we're kind of running up a little bit more short on time, but I kind of wanted just to give you the aspects of it as far as how this can work. Now, a lot of times when people ask me for help with OneNote, I don't just say, okay, I can show you some great things I can do with it. The biggest thing is I ask, okay, what is your purpose? What is your goal? How do you want to organize? What works for you? How do you normally do things on paper? And so from there, it's going to give you these options as far as how you would want to lay things out over here on the left-hand side when it comes to your sections and section groups. And from there, you can be successful as you pursue on. And again, there's a very powerful OneNote app that lets you actually scan documents, take pictures of it, and actually save those things that are in here as well, so that it almost looks something like this as a type of PDF. So here it is a great collect-all place in one single stop. So with that, I'm going to go back into our presentation and kind of wrap some things up here. Sorry, I didn't have that over on the original screen. So again, we kind of talked about creating in OneDrive. I mentioned the anatomy of it with the sections and pages. Its purpose is what it kind of really need to as far as what you can do, especially for your students. Definitely the purpose is to keep organized, but what is it you want to collect and kind of spearhead from there. I also mentioned some other key features in there as far as what can it obtain, what it can handle. It can also handle some files in there, and also we should notice that math feature that's very powerful and helpful as well. So again, this kind of concludes the three-part series that we had. For our series, the recordings will be available for all three sessions as separate recordings. Again, session 1 was basically all about the specific Surface device that students will be receiving here shortly and in the future if they haven't already. The next one was about accessing student work with leveraging Surface features for success. So we dove into Edge as well as a lot of other great Office 365 features. And of course, we talked about disciplinary literacy, which involved the thinking, reading, and writing components that the district I know is really working hard for our students to have. And so we just shared with you as far as how Office 365 or Microsoft 365 can really support those different goals with Word Online, PowerPoint presentation, as well as being organized when it comes to OneNote and catching all things within your OneNote area as well. Again, the links will be available at the ncce.link/parent link that you see there, which will also take you to a source that is available provided by the Dallas ISD. So with that, we are kind of running short on time, so we can go ahead and conclude our session with you. On behalf of me and Noreen, as well as our wonderful group of NCCE, we're excited that you had us out, and we are looking forward to supporting you and your students, as well as teachers and educators and administrators with this great and powerful rollouts.